Guys, welcome back to Quick Notes with Chris. Today we're going to be talking about the book Principles by Ray Dalio. This is a really interesting book. Ray Dalio, fun fact, is actually P. Diddy's mentor whenever it came to investing. So if you are into the hip-hop type of style, that might be able to help you, understand what it is that he's talking about. But basically, he just has a lot of success principles that he basically implements and asks you guys to implement as well in order to get closer to success. So first thing that he talks about is understanding failure. So successful people, so many have this misconception, especially people who aren't around successful people often, is that successful people aren't people that never fail. They've just never let failure stop them. See, Albert Einstein, he might be considered one of the smartest people that ever existed, but in reality, he says, it's not I'm the smartest. This is his quote. It's just that I stuck to problems longer than anyone else. See, if you view life as a game and understand that problems, whether it's in business, whether it's in relationships, they're just puzzles that are waiting to be solved, then you can sort of understand that there's always a solution to every single problem. And that's how you need to approach life. That's how you need to approach business. And that's really what the book Principles talks about. It's by understanding that problems are not setbacks that stop you from becoming successful, but more it's a journey that gets you towards success. See, the most successful people are actually walking floors. They've literally failed the most. In fact, you can argue that they literally have so many weaknesses in so many other areas. It's just that they're focused on capitalizing their strengths. For example, singers, they might not very be good at being accountants, but they're incredibly amazing at singing. Or athletes, they might be the best at handling their finances, but they're incredibly good at sports. And so on and so on and so on. And these different aspects is what basically orientate the different people to understand that failure isn't something that sets them back. It's just there's something they have to accept, understand, and basically look towards producing a solution. So the book basically understands and tells you this equation in order to become successful. So it goes pain or discomfort plus reflection equals progress. So many people experience so many different adversities, so many different problems that they hit, and then they lack reflection. And by lacking reflection, you never actually learn from the experience. So for example, if you're in pain, okay, and you go through this is a really common one because a lot of people go through this. If you have a relationship that ends up becoming toxic, you guys end up absolutely yelling at each other. There's so many mistakes that you guys make along the way, but you don't reflect on the relationship, you're just going to fall into that same relationship again. It basically talks about learning from your mistakes. And that's what's so important because I see it so often where people have fallen into the same relationships after decades. They'll have ones at 15 and ones at 25 and 35, but they'll be the same relationships. And the reason is because they're not addressing the problem through reflection. And if that's the same in relationships, because I think a lot of people can understand that, is that if you look at where you went wrong, first of all, you always go wrong. I take 100% accountability. Once you take 100% accountability, that means that no matter how minuscule of a stake that you have in the situation, no matter what, you were part of that outcome, which means that you have control to change it. So take extreme ownership first, understand your reflection. So if so many people are going to these relationships and they're making all these mistakes and yet they're not implementing a reflection process, then they're bound to fall into the same relationship just with someone else, making the same mistakes, whether it's cheating, whether it's fighting, whether it's character flaws, whether it's all these different types of things. And if that's the same thing in relationships, that's the exact same principle in business. See, so many people go into work, so many people go into business and they make these mistakes, whether it's going down the wrong career, making the wrong choices, acting the wrong way, and they essentially think that they did nothing wrong. And that's the first number one step. If you ever enter a situation where you believe you did nothing wrong, you're instantly wrong. Because no matter what, there is something that you could have done to change it. 100%. And once you understand that, then you can start to think, okay, well then now you're accountable. And if you're accountable, that means that there's something you could have done right. And that's where reflection comes in. So many people lack reflections on their decisions, so many lack reflections on their wrongdoings, and the reason why they lack those reflections is exactly why they're destined to do it again. There's a reason why so many people work the same jobs for so many years. There's a reason why so many people consistently make the same mistakes, and there's so many reasons why people don't end up getting out of debt. And it's because their habits or their wrong way of living, because obviously it's a wrong way of living because it's not getting what they want, lacks reflection because they consistently fall into this cycle. And if you do have pain or discomfort plus reflection, that equals progress. And that's where the progress comes. And it's like if you're playing a video game, of course you're going to have a level of reflection. Now, I don't expect it to be deep, but every single time you die or every single time you do something and you fail, you're going to think about it in order to make sure that you don't have the same thing when you come to it again. Or whether it's anything in life that's a video game or a sport. Well, that's the same thing when it comes to life, relationships, people in general. The same process should be given. And I think that a lot of people do. I think that a lot of people do reflect. But if they only reflect in the early stages, they reflect in their first relationships, they reflect in their first works, they reflect in their initial attempts. And then they sort of give up. They feel as if they've arrived. They're not necessarily arrived, but they don't need to learn more. When in truth, you always need to be learning. And that's what this book talks about, having these principles in place. They understand that there's always something you can do better. The next one is called be radically open-minded. Now this one is really tough, because this one talks about putting aside your ego and in fact, absolutely deleting it, because you need to be able to, sometimes for most people, they lack the natural reflection process of themselves. See, everybody can be critical of someone else, but very few people can be critical of themselves. So what that means is, if you feel as if you have that problem, the solution is set aside your ego and ask someone else. You're going to have to approach someone else and say, hey, where is it that I'm going wrong? Seek the truth, regardless of how bad it makes you feel. And if you're honest and you've put aside your ego and you've asked it in a very nice way, in a way that doesn't seem as if you're going to be defensive, hopefully that person will deliver you that information. Now, chances are, with the people that I've hung around with, they're not going to be exactly nice. In fact, depending on the type of person you are, they might be a little bit over the top on it. But understand that there's probably going to be some definite, real advice that you can take from the situation. And it's your job to put aside your ego, go through the pain of hearing it from them, and reflect on it and implement solutions in order to become a progressive person. And it's tough, and it's not easy. If it was easy, every single person would do it, but just know that that's the process. So now you understand the equation. The next thing is find the root of the cause. See, so many people, they end up just putting it to the back of their mind, or they end up selling the solution away. For example, if you went into a house and you bought it, let's say you bought it, and there was leaky plumbing. So many people, rather than fix it, would rather just sell and move on to the next. And so on and so on and so on. And now the problem with that is it might be a little bit difficult to connect, but the problem is always re-arising yourself. See, if you never address the solutions that you have in your relationships around you are failing, whether it's in business or whether it's in like your genuine friendships and relationships around you, and they constantly are failing, you need to look from within, because there's something that you're doing. Because not the only person who's constant in every one of your relationships is yourself. So you need to look to within and understand, what is it? Where is it that I'm going wrong? What is the leaky plumbing that I need to fix? I can't just sell this away and move on to the next, because no matter what, problems will still arise. If you have issues with your character or issues with your skill set, they are going to consistently come up, especially if you pick the same careers, especially if you pick similar relationships. So you need to find the root cause of the reason why you act a certain way that you do. Then and only then can you start to address it. So many people would rather have fruit that look good when on the inside's rotten, when realistically they need to address the roots. You can't polish a rotten fruit. You need to fix the roots. And that's the same problem with you, like your character. I'm guilty of it as well. There's a bunch of things that I need to fix. And so can you as well. But the first step is understanding you might need to ask someone what they think of you. Where is it that you're going wrong? What are the problems that are in your life that you can utilize fixing? And on top of that, where are the changes that you can make within yourself today in order to make sure that you don't keep approaching these problems? Finally, most people change their goals rather than address it. Most people have these massive goals, or not necessarily massive goals, but once they realize that their methodology, the process towards getting there is is more harder than they thought, they end up lowering their reality. And it's really sad, because the truth is that anything is possible. If someone's achieved it in this life, that means anybody else can achieve it in this life. And it could be something as simple as owning a house, or owning your own business. See, that their personal setbacks in life indicate that their reality should be a reflection of that, when realistically your goals is meant to stretch you. Your reality should be stretched towards your goals rather than your goals being brought down to your reality. And it's understanding that you should always be striving towards becoming a better person, implementing higher goals. Set them higher than what you expect, because the chances are you are going to fall short. Just like an arrow is going to feel the effects of gravity, goals are going to feel the effects of life. And generally, most of the time, we do fall slightly short. Finally, write your principles down. Principles are essentially rules that you're going to abide by. Now, if you can understand your morals, beliefs, and rules and principles, it makes it far easier when it comes to decision making. If you've already decided that this is the way that you're going to react, regardless of how you feel, you can go back towards your logical goals that you instated. For example, I have there's so many rules that it informs of whenever I'm making work and jobs and stuff like that. If there's certain things that affect my relationships around me, I purposefully sacrifice whatever benefits might come, because I've chosen to value my relationships more. And so it makes that decision easier. It might not make it feel better, but but it definitely makes that decision easier because I have instilled rules, beliefs, and values and principles that I can abide by. And I highly suggest you do that as well. That's probably the number one thing. What you can do right now is go and write down your principles. Figure out what it is that you value most in life, so that when it comes to these hard, difficult decisions that you might have to make along the track, you know exactly how to react. Anyways, guys, that's it for Quick Notes with Croissant. Don't stop there though in terms of improvement. Keep looking at some of the other videos we have on the channel to keep putting yourself in a better position for success. I'll see you in the next one.